Heya all there virtual rafters, thanks for clicking and welcome to a guide on the story location in Raft called Temperance. Perhaps the largest zone yet, but it feels reminiscent of traversing Balboa Island in size and sometimes in frustration with getting lost. The snowy environment doesn't help, the visibility can be a bit of a bear. And speaking of bears, this rendition has polar bears, so you'll want to bring along some of your most effective weapons and tons of snacks in case you get lost. These are some notable locations on the island, the most obvious being the nuclear facility atop the hill emitting bright lights into the sky. That's where we're going to be starting our guide from because it's the easiest to find. Other locations include a small village of huts called MoonTown, an observatory, and the radio towers that are scattered across the island. There are 12 notes in total, including the coordinates for the final story location, along with 3 blueprints to find for the advanced biofuel refiner, electric smelter, and advanced stationary anchor that lets us auto-drop anchors from the raft's power controls. It seems like a lot of notes, but 4 of them are drawings to help you decipher a puzzle required at the observatory location. Luckily for us, there are already some snowmobiles parked in a garage next to the Selene nuclear facility. Hop on one and start heading down the pathway that starts to the right from the front of the facility. Following this pathway can help navigate you to all the key stops on this story island. All along this route, there are radio towers everywhere on this snow-covered island. The easiest way of rounding up the wires needed for MoonTown's electricity is taking the path that veers to the right and making a circle all the way around the island. You may end up on a completely different side of the island depending upon where your raft sailed in from, but to find quick transportation by snowmobile, look for the small metal buildings marked with red flags. In a short span, you'll reach a radio tower. Be mindful of the large furry menaces at the base of each one that needs to be killed before the boxes at the tower bases can be robbed of their wires. Once it is safe, approach the electrical box and hold down the action key until the wire is completely pulled loose. Return to the snowmobile and onto the next tower. Each of these towers provides 2 wires, and you can keep track of how many you have in your player journal. It's ideal to have about 12 on hand by the time you start the mini puzzle of wiring the village. Across this island, you'll also find bunkers that will be filled with loot to add to your bounty, but be careful in exploring down there. There can be nuclear waste fallout that will do damage to you. After riding a short distance, continuing down the path, staying to the right, you'll come upon the island's observatory. As you approach the fence, you will find the first note location. Go ahead and grab that if you're going for full completion of the story. You'll be looking for 7 notes in total, 4 of them being the drawings to determine the code for the Selene key safe. Walk just past the fence and the ground will give way underneath you, dropping into an icy pit. Then swim your way into the tunnel and follow it as far as you can while fighting off some of those ugly-looking anglerfish with vicious teeth. This will eventually lead you into a cavern with a ladder. And don't miss the vending machine token before taking the ladder if you're hoping to collect extra decorations for your raft. This ladder leads to a base level of the observatory. In here, we're looking around for a few notes, including 4 drawings that help us solve a puzzle to unlock the safe. There's a story note from Bruno on the table and a drawing of a hook near the sink. Go up the stairs to find the next drawing of a pufferfish. There's another token sitting between these stacked boxes. And then continue on up to the next floor where there is a telescope interface and a safe. Next to the safe is a third drawing in the series of a raft. Climb up the ladder in the room to find the fourth drawing, along with another one of Bruno's notes near the makeshift doll of the character Henry. To figure out the puzzle, use the telescope screen interface to find the constellations of drawings that you found and are now in your player journal. The number of drawings indicates the order for the 4-digit code. Count the stars on the constellation in the telescope interface, and these are the numbers that you'll need to open the safe. Punch in the numbers, and the safe will pop open, revealing several items: the key to the Selene facility, some tokens, and the blueprint for the advanced stationary anchor. A rather helpful addition to the raft that will add that lever to the engine control to drop and raise the anchor so that you don't have to run from your controls to the anchor anymore. Return down to the first floor of the observatory and exit out the front door. You'll find yourself back into the courtyard, and you can make your way back to your snowmobile and on to collecting more electrical wires. There's a tower that's located right next to the observatory that's easily accessible. By now you should have at least 6 wires, but we'll need to double this in order to make the MoonTown puzzle easy. Look up at the horizon, as the towers with wires will still be blinking red lights, and it makes them easier to find. Once you've collected at least 10 wires, you can head towards the village, as there's another tower located right next to it for the remaining needed wires. The objective in this small town of igloos is to connect up the electrical to activate all the doors to access the individual huts. Not all of them are meant to be opened. First, locate the generator, which is somewhat near the snowmobile garage and the radio tower. There will be a note that's propped up against it for your journal progress. Find the front of the generator to plug into. This works much like the zip lines that we construct for our raft, in that you can drag the lines from one point to another and lock them in. The most efficient way to route these wires seems to be going around the outer edge of the village and looping back to the big dome in the center, of which I happen to have a handy diagram here to show the approximate routing of the wires from Guided to help. Might want to check around each one of these outer huts for tokens and useful loot. The first one appears to be some kind of workout facility. Many of the others look like individual living quarters for the nuclear scientists, but tucked away in here is also an infirmary that will contain one of the story notes that you'll want for your journal. The final hut, the large dome in the center, contains several key items that you'll want to pick up. There are more tokens here, along with the vending machines to spend them for items themed on the Temperance location. There's paintings, plates, cups, plants, and rugs to choose from. On the upper floor, you'll find blueprints for the advanced biofuel refiner and the blowtorch that's necessary to move on to finishing the objectives on the island. At this point, you can head back out and grab yourself a snowmobile to journey your way back to the Selene nuclear facility. At the main door, use the blowtorch on the wall to the left of the entrance. This will de-ice the keyhole for the Selene key that we got from the observatory safe. We can now enter into the facility and are met by a large screen displaying warnings about overheating, that control rods need to be inserted to avert catastrophe. As you might gather, this means we are collecting some control rods from around the zone. There's a note to collect from the control panel before running off to our first puzzle room. When you're ready, enter the only open doorway for Laboratory 2. Don't forget to suit up in hazmat equipment before going. These suits have a timer on them that will be indicated above your action bar, and you may have to return several times to avoid radiation damage while completing these puzzles. Wind your way down to a series of 3 rooms filled with computers. In each room, one screen will be lit up with a chemical symbol. Notice the posters hanging on the walls? Those give you number codes required to complete the puzzle. Find the elements that match the prompts on the computer screen. You'll have limited time to run from screen to screen entering in the codes, so do your best to memorize them and run like you're being chased by one of those bears. If you've successfully done the task within the timer, a door opens from across the entrance and will lead you into the first set of laboratory rooms. Look around after exiting the computer lab and search for the first control rod. Then, find a ladder further leading you through this nuclear wasteland maze. Eventually, you'll reach a room with a giant red valve. This needs to be turned in order to open the exit to the room. Engaging it will summon a small herd of cockroach-looking bugs that you'll have to take down in order to continue turning the valve. Watch for the door opening on the other side of the room to make your escape, and then look around for a second control rod. The next room we enter marks the start of the mirrored puzzle portion of the facility. Once you activate the switch, the wall lasers will turn on and bounce across the room. There's a small handle that controls the mirrors that can be adjusted, and it's sort of a mini puzzle before the bigger one on the other side of this door. The point is to bounce the laser in a way that it will connect with the electronic lock on the laboratory number 1 door. Rotate the controls slightly until the laser passes over the lock, and do be mindful of the lasers as they will do damage to your health bar. Don't forget to grab yourself another hazmat suit before entering in the next area with all that floating green radioactive material. There will be a switch on the other door to activate the next puzzle. In this room, there's a series of mirrored walls and rotatable stand mirrors to bounce the lasers around the zone. I have another useful diagram here from Guided to help you figure out how to get this done as fast as possible. As with the room before, the objective is to get the laser to knock out the electric door lock so that we can pass through. As soon as you pass through the unlocked door, the third control rod and another note will be on the other side. After picking up those, we can now head back to the control room and insert these control rods into the 3 receptacles found at the display of the center of the nuclear facility. Pull the handle on the main control unit where you found the first node in the zone. This hasn't entirely fixed the problem, unfortunately. The meltdown needs a manual fix and will be given a key for the reactor room. Put yourself in another hazmat suit and start making your way to the reactor. On the other side, you'll find lots more bugs, along with 3 red valves around the reactor. Every time you start to turn the valves, it's going to spawn more bugs, so be prepared to keep this up for a while. It's kind of like a boss fight if the boss were a mass of annoying little bugs that persistently attack you while you're trying to turn the valves. When successful, you'll see the reactor behavior change, and a door will open from across the room. Enter the iced over room. Maybe stop to grab that token along the way, as these tokens are good for all vending machines across the game story island. And there's still more to come in the final stop in this adventure. Inside the iced over room, you'll find the blueprints for the battery operated refiner, as well as the coordinates for Utopia. Don't forget to check the wall for the cryo chamber controls. Clicking on it will release a human that's been trapped in there for quite some time. This is another character model that you can now switch to that will change your appearance. This concludes the general walkthrough guide for the story of Temperance. Now for those who don't mind some story spoilers or miss notes along the way, onto a little review of what's happening in the story. The first note in the journal shows up as one that we retrieved from the fence from the front of the observatory. It appears to be written by Bruno, whom we are first introduced to on Balboa Island, as there are references to the constructed doll Miranda. So we know from this that Bruno has made it here from Varuna Point. Bruno is quite sure that the signals that he has been tracking are from his sister, perhaps one of the people that he's been trying to contact from the Balboa radio stations. Note 2 is found at the base of the observatory, and it's a warning about the island's inhabitant bears, but indicates that Detto has also made the journey with us. Although it suggests that Detto made the trip along with other survivors rather than with Bruno, even though the both of them were referenced in the Varuna Point notes. They're traveling parallel to each other, perhaps following the same trace signals being broadcast out for other rafters to find. Slightly out of order from how notes are collected, Note 3 is the one found at the base of the generator at the Moonglow Village igloos. At this point, we see Ruben introduced to the story again. This name originally came up in notes left for us by Vazagatten by Henne. This is who she had left behind at the terraforming project aboard the ill-fated yacht. Ruben has a little bit of a run-in with a bear, and it will be interesting to see if we find him alive and well by the end of the story. The fourth note is found in the infirmary of the Igloo Village. Bruno hasn't become self-aware that him talking to his doll Henry is a bit strange for the both of them. There seems to be some residual paranoia rattling around in Bruno's brain, but the good news is that they have repaired a boat that's capable of travel to the next location. Note 5 is found on the top floor of the observatory and marks the end of the Henry the doll's journey, as this is where we indeed saw Henry's figure leaning up against the wall. Bruno is at least exhibiting some sense of reason, being hopeful that he will find his sister Astrid in the next location that they are all traveling to in hopes of finding what's left of civilization. These last two notes, aside from the drawings and the Utopia coordinates, are from the Selene nuclear facility. The first one found at the controls is from Sparrow, one of the engineers referenced in the notes from the very first location, the radio tower. This is the engineer who had stolen the boat, leaving Cuckoo behind, and now we find out why. Sparrow has made it this far despite all odds. The note tells us of a fate of the engineering team, including Cuckoo, who was left behind due to their involvement with investors who were attempting to take over green energy for themselves, capitalizing on it for the survival of the wealthy to power massive floating cities. Sparrow continues in the second note, telling us that Olaf Wilkerson of the Vazagatten yacht is one of those greedy investors who is intent on taking control of the technology rather than to provide it to the survivors of the flooded planet. This is all foreshadowing for our next story location, but what's interesting, and I thought I would connect this to something scary in real life, is that billionaires with their little startups are already obsessed with these ideas. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want Silicon Valley bros with their mantra of move fast, break things, working on nuclear energy projects. At this point, these capitalist warlords think that nuclear power is the solution to the energy consumption of their supercomputers, and that AI will require it to run. No matter what you might think of nuclear energy as an energy source, we know that they can turn into safety hazards at the slightest mismanagement. It seems like capitalist thinking, cost-cutting, shareholder profit motive, and a casual attitude might be a bad combination when it comes to nuclear. What could possibly go wrong with commercialized, mass-produced nuclear reactors? My Silicon Valley is quite full of real-life villains. You might have guessed that these types would get the similar results as the villains of Raft if they were trying to build nuclear projects to save the world. And I do very much enjoy the social class commentary built within the storyline. It was already an entertaining and engaging experience, and the story is just a bonus. The next guide is the final story location in the game, and hopefully we'll be tying up some loose ends and explaining the full plot. Trustworthy and I will be punching in these coordinates and rafting towards Utopia soon. If you're looking for more raft videos, I have a playlist of building guides and other random stuff, among a bunch of life simulator type content. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, y'all, and bye-bye!